Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing an AEW women's roster tier list. I know tier lists are super popular on YouTube, and I don't see too many wrestling YouTubers do it, so I thought I'd try my hand at it, and since Hikaru Shida just won her third AEW Women's Championship, I thought what better time than any to do it now. So we're going to take a look at the tiers here. We have S, A, B, C, D, and F, which are the usual tiers, everybody uses them, and then the haven't seen in a while / doesn't really wrestle too often tier. Those are for people like, for example, Maria Kanellis-Bennett, who just doesn't really wrestle, or you just don't see on main AEW TV too often. Before we do kick off this video, I want to give a quick little shout out to my Twitter. This is where I do match reviews. I have two Twitters. I have @it's Novi, that one's in the corner, and I have this one. Again, I do match reviews here. Today I reviewed Elio Del Vikingo versus Rey Fenix from a year ago, and I use this kind of as a platform to just do quick little thoughts on wrestling matches and maybe look back at some of the classics that happened on the day's date, or maybe just some of the classics I decided to watch. So if you guys like that sort of thing, drop a follow to that Twitter account. With that being said, let's jump right into it, starting with Abaddon. She only really wrestles once a year around Halloween, so we might see her again in a few weeks, but I think she belongs in Haven't Seen in a While tier just because, again, we don't see her wrestle very often. I know she's been putting in a lot of work to get in better shape and just get better overall, but for now, again, she just doesn't wrestle, and so for that reason, she's going down in that tier. Anna Jay is someone who I thought would be something early on in her career, but over the years just hasn't really progressed in any meaningful way, and so I can't really put her much higher than I'd probably say D. I think she's an alright wrestler. I think she has some talent, but she just hasn't really made any improvements in any major way, and she doesn't work any indies. She just does AEW, and they put her in these spots on TV, and she just rarely delivers. She rarely steps up to the plate like a lot of other wrestlers I'm going to talk about here do. And for that reason, I think she's the epitome of a D tier. Next up, we're talking about Athena, the ROH Women's Champion, who has been absolutely carrying that brand on her back for a couple months now. This might be the easiest decision to make in this entire tier list, but we're gonna just slot her right into S tier. I think that's exactly where she belongs. She's incredibly talented in the ring. If you haven't watched her match with Layla Hirsch not too long ago, then I recommend that a ton. That was a great match. We'll talk about that more when we get to Layla Hirsch, but every opponent she's in the ring with, she elevates. Every time she looks like a star. I need to see her back on AEW TV, back on Dynamite, because that's exactly where she belongs. Next up, we're going to talk about her companion, her minion, Billie Starkz, who I think has a lot of potential as a younger talent. Billie has a lot of moments where she's shown she's a very capable worker. I think her skits with Athena have been very funny, very entertaining, and so for that reason, I think she's just the epitome of someone who, like, is very rough around the edges, but you can kind of excuse it because she's so young. So I think for now, I'd probably put her somewhere in the C tier. Britt Baker is a very divisive wrestler at this day and age. A few years ago, you would have probably put her in maybe the S or the A tier because her character work was just so incredibly good. It was different from anything anyone else was doing in this division. But now as time has gone on, her work has gotten a lot more stale. It's gotten a lot more just kind of dry, and for that reason, I don't think she's much more than, I'd probably say B tier. I think a lot of people might argue for her to be put in C tier just because I think her work in the ring is very divisive. I personally am not too big of a fan of it. She works very slow and sometimes gets a little bit sloppy for where she's put on the card. I just don't think she's good enough, but her character work and some of the potential that she shows is definitely worthy of the B tier. Next up, we're talking about Diamante, who has been around for a long time in AEW, but just recently got her shot on AEW TV, and I thought she kind of proved herself a little bit. Not proved herself in the sense where she'd be like a top champion material, but just someone who's a very good worker, can sit in the mid card and give a lot of the top women a good match here and there. I'm excited to see what she does with Mercedes, and I hope she's on TV a little bit more often because I think she's good enough to be there, so I'd probably put her in the C tier as well. Next up, we're talking about Emi Sakura, who has kind of blown up in popularity recently just because she's been very, like, vocal about not getting to be on All In and how hard she's going to work to get there. I know a lot of people have watched a lot of her work in the past because she's a long tenured veteran. I haven't seen too much of it. From what I've seen on AEW TV, though, she's a very, very solid veteran wrestler. Every time she's given the opportunity, she goes out there and shines. I recall her match with, I'm pretty sure it was Chris Statlander, where she just got like 7-8 minutes and just went crazy, did all of her cool shit, and I thought that was awesome. So I think she's a very, very solid hand. Better than, she's definitely above average is what I'd say. So I hope she gets Queen at some point. Probably not, but just so she can have that moment. But as it goes for this tier list, it's a B tier for me. Harley Cameron, she's in QTV, doesn't wrestle. We're putting her in that tier. Next up, we're talking about Hikaru Shida. Like I said, the first ever 3-time AEW Women's Champion, and she's brought a new sense of just like excitement for it. I want to see her in these cool matches. I want to see her be put in these cool spots. I want TK to bring over some Joshi talent like Vaney. Like, I know she wants to work her. I think that's how you say it. I hope I'm not saying it wrong, because I just think that'd be awesome. That would just be so different from anything we've gotten from the AEW women's division in quite some time, and I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic with her as champion. So for that reason, I'm kind of just debating whether or not I want to put her in S or an A tier. I think she does have the legs to carry the division on her back. I think she works incredibly well in the ring. We all know that. Her character work is, iffy. She's a foreign talent, but she speaks very fluent English, and I hope she gets more opportunities to showcase that as champion. But yeah, I think I was debating whether between S or A tier, but just based off her recent work, just based on like how optimistic I am now that she's champion, I think you have to put her in S tier. We're going to add someone else to the S tier right away because it's Jamie Hayter, who has just been so sorely missed in AEW. I was so sad when she had to relinquish her title against Toni Storm in that squash match. I thought there was so much potential with her as champion. The fans were getting so behind her. She works this incredible style that not many women in American TV work, and it was just awesome. I was so disappointed. I know she's not going to be back for the rest of this year, but I hope next year that we see her, and I hope we see her at the top of the card again because she genuinely is that good. And like I said, we're just going to go ahead and put her right up there because this is an S tier wrestler easily. Next up, we're going to talk about Julia Hart, who has shown a lot of improvement lately, especially in her match with Chris Statlander at Wrestle Dream, where I thought she stepped up to the plate in a big way. I wasn't sure what to expect. I know she'd been having some pretty good matches on TV. She had a good one against Willow, but I didn't know what we would see on pay-per-view, and then she just went out there and did her thing and got over with the crowd. I mean, the crowd were pretty behind her by the end of the match, which is pretty telling. I think this character is awesome. I think it's so cool. It fits her so well. I think it's the best decision she ever made to switch up her character, and I think she'll be around for a long time. She's one of those younger wrestlers who has a lot of potential, and hopefully you continue to see her grow because she has grown a lot in her 4 years as a wrestler. 4 years, that's crazy. She was in a pay-per-view match like that. So for that reason, for that potential alone, I think she's got to go in B tier. I think she's got a lot to offer as a wrestler. I think she's very, very athletic. I mean, that moonsault is so incredible. I genuinely think it's one of the best moonsaults going in wrestling right now. So yeah, I think for potential alone, it's got to be B tier. Next up, we're talking about Kiera Hogan, who, like Julia Hart, proved herself in a big title match, but it was against Athena. Athena's always going to give you a good match, but Kiera looked really good in it, and I think she's looked pretty good when she's been on TV. She has a decent amount of potential. I think she has the potential to just be kind of a good mid-card worker, and maybe if she steps it up and takes a big leap, I could see her challenge for titles pretty often. I think you'd still have to kind of see what happens with her, but for now, I think she's a pretty easy C tier. We're filling up this S tier fast. I mean, we are front-loaded at the top of this alphabetical order list, but Chris Statlander is one of the best in the division right now, and she's one of the best women's wrestlers in the world right now. I don't think anyone should underrate her when it comes to Women's Wrestler of the Year conversations because I genuinely think she's elevated every single person she's worked with since she's gotten the title. And that's very telling just about how good you are and how quality your in-ring work is. So for that reason alone, I think she would deserve an S tier. But even outside of that, I think she so easily connects with people when it comes to her promos. I don't think as many people see them because they're mostly on Twitter, but she's so personable and she's so cool. And yeah, I definitely think she's an S tier. One of the best this division has to offer, and I'm really happy that she finally got this TBS title reign. It's been great so far. I'm just really excited to see where it goes. So yeah, but moving on from Chris Statlander, let's talk about Lady Frost, who I really haven't seen too much of, but she is the most recent AEW signing from, maybe not the most recent, I think she was before Billy, but she hasn't even been seen on TV too much. When she was on TV, I wasn't incredibly moved or anything like that, but it's been a while since I've seen any of her matches, so I don't exactly want to rate her because, similar to some people we're going to talk about here, I'm just going to put her in the haven't seen in a while tier because I know that she is very solid, but I just haven't seen enough of her to really feel like I should rate her, So I'm going to put her in that bottom tier. Alongside her in that bottom tier, so it's Layla Gray. She doesn't wrestle, I don't think. Maybe she does, but I haven't seen it, so she's going right along with her. Someone who does wrestle, and someone who did have a very good wrestling match earlier this month, is Layla Hirsch. If you haven't seen her match with Athena, you gotta go watch that match because it was actually very, very good. That float over powerbomb counter that she did was awesome. Her technical work was really unique and something that I just haven't really seen too much of when it comes to women's wrestling in America. It was the first time where she felt kind of returned to form. It felt like she was fluid in ring. It felt like she knew what she was doing. And I mean, it's pretty easy to do so when you're in the ring with someone the caliber of Athena. But she definitely stepped up to the plate, and I think a lot of people were impressed by that match, myself included. So for that reason, I'm leaning between B or C tier here. I think for now, I'm going to go ahead and put her in C tier. I think she shows a lot of potential. She could very easily move up. But for now, I just haven't really seen too much of it. I want to see a little bit more consistency, and then I might move her up. But for now, I think she's definitely one of the best when it comes to the C tier, which will be full by the end of this, I'm sure. A couple more we're going to move into that I haven't seen in a while. We're going to move Madison Rayne, Maria Kanellis-Bennett, and we're probably going to move Marina Shafir. I just haven't really seen too much of them. I don't want to rate them if I haven't seen too much. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe I should have went and go watch Maria Kanellis or fucking Marina Shafir matches, but I'm not doing that, and I'm just going to put them in that tier. Someone I have watched, Mercedes Martinez, who in that team with Diamante, like I said, has been very enjoyable. I think she's a very good veteran hand to have around. I think a lot of young women's wrestlers can learn a lot from her because she's just very solid. Whenever she does wrestle on TV, she always is good enough. She always does what she needs to do and makes her opponent look good, makes herself look good even. So for that reason, I think she's probably up there in the C tier. Finally, we're going to put someone in the A tier. It's Nyla Rose, one of the first AEW women's wrestlers, one of the first AEW women's champions, who I think right now is in kind of a weird spot. If you follow her Twitter, you know she's very funny, she's very personable. I don't really know why they have her working heel. It's probably just because she's a bigger women's wrestler. I mean, they gotta be heel, they're big. But if she was a face, I think she'd genuinely get over with the fans. Every time she does have a match, she's very solid. She works very safe compared to a lot of other bigger women's wrestlers. I think she knows how to make a smaller wrestler look good. I look back at that match with Riho. We're going to talk about that later, maybe a little bit. But I look back at that match as kind of a moment where it was like, all right, she's one of the better, bigger women's wrestlers I've ever seen. I think she's maybe a step above the B tier. I think every time she's put in the ring, like I said, she's solid. So yeah, she's going to be the first person to get put in that A tier on this list. Next tier is Paige Van Zant. She's just collecting a paycheck, to be honest. I know TK doesn't want to cut people, but I mean, he's definitely going to let that contract run out and not re-sign because I don't know. I don't even know what he was thinking when he signed her, but obviously doesn't wrestle. Penelope Ford is not someone who features very often on AWTV, but when she does, I think she's just a very solid person in the ring. I kind of wish I would see her and someone we're going to talk about later, the Bunny, a bit more because I think they're both very solid hands. I don't know why Anna Jay gets the spot over her, like, for example. I definitely think she's better than that. I enjoy her work whenever I see her, so C tier. Rebel doesn't wrestle. I mean, probably going to let that contract expire. I enjoyed when she was with Britt Baker, like, a little bit, but, you know, it's whatever. Someone who might let their contract expire is Red Velvet. I don't really know why she's not on TV. I don't think she's hurt. I haven't really seen that anywhere. But whenever she's put in the spots on TV, she's been good, and I think she's been above average. Maybe she's not the most clean in the ring, but she's also quite young, so, I mean, I don't really expect her to be. And I just kind of wish she's one of those people where I just wish I saw her more. But when I have seen her, I think she's a bit above average. She's going to be another one. We're going to fill up that C tier because there's a lot of C tier women's wrestlers on AEW. But yeah, I hope she comes back soon. Here we go. We mentioned her earlier when we were talking about Nyla Rose, and she's going to go right alongside her. It's Riho. I know she's been in Japan for a while, and I don't know why TK doesn't feature her more. I think she's genuinely such a good talent. I think she works so well for someone just like, she's a very small wrestler, but it never really feels that way. One of the most clean and crispy wrestlers. I'm really happy that I got to see her. I was at Battle of the Belts with her match again. I think it's Britt Baker, and I'm happy that I got to see her because she's just a very enjoyable wrestler. She flies around. She takes shit well. I mean, that's exactly what you need. She's a very good hand, and I really wish, similar to Red Velvet, but even to a higher degree, I don't know why she's not on TV, and I hope TK brings her back soon because I can only imagine how good a match with Hikaru Shida would be. And I'm not one of those people who are like, oh, put the Joshi talent with the Joshi talent, because I think she'd have a great match with pretty much anyone on this roster, so I don't care who TK books her against. Just book her. Should have booked her on Tuesday. She probably would have popped a number too. I don't know what he was thinking when it comes to that either. One half of the Outcast is up next. It's Ruby Soho, and I wasn't very excited when she came into the company. I hadn't really seen much of her work, but I knew a lot of people were pretty hyped about it just because she was good on the indies, and so far, I mean, she's been pretty good. They are never, ever going to let her win in any big spots, and I don't know what she did to deserve losing in every final, but maybe one day she'll overcome it. She's got that Cody Rhodes adversity going for her right now, but I think she's a very solid in-ring hand. I think she is a bit above average when it comes to someone like Mercedes Martinez, like comparing the two. I think she's a step above that. I think she moves me a lot more than she does. I think her heel character while she's been in the Outcast has suited her very well, and so for that reason, I think she belongs right in the B tier. Next up, we're talking about Saraya, who, I can't lie, when she came into the company, I was pretty excited. I was a fan of her when I was younger. She was different from all the other, divas at the time, which is such a shitty name. But since she's come in, I mean, does she do much for anyone? Like, she wrestled a few matches, and her match against Britt was, like, alright, but then she won the title at All In for the moment, which I was terrified TK would do, and then he did it. And then I remember Monty from Wrestle Purist asking her in the press conference afterwards, they were like, are you going to be wrestling in more singles matches? And she was like, yeah, it took her like 3 minutes to respond, and then she finally said, yeah, I'll wrestle more singles matches. And so far, she wrestled 2 during that reign. And then she lost the title to Shida in what was a good match, but before that, she just didn't wrestle. And I don't know why she doesn't wrestle. I'm assuming it's because her neck hurts, because she took like one of the safest looking German suplexes I've ever seen during her match with Shida, because she wanted to prove everyone wrong she could take it. And then Shida just kind of like plopped her down a little bit safely, which is, the right thing to do, but it's just funny. It's hard to be moved by her work, and then you see the actual person, and she is on Twitter like going after everyone and just being like genuinely like annoying and just kind of like spiteful. And I can't enjoy that. I can't even like pretend to like that at all. And I'm not going to pretend to like it because it stinks. And I think she hasn't been very good. I think she's maybe C tier, but when you look at all the baggage that comes with it, you look at all the shit that has happened, especially just I've had the displeasure of looking at those tweets on Twitter. And for that reason, that's where she goes. Serena Deeb, I don't know where she's at as well. Similar to Red Velvet. I know she got in like a scuffle with management over something stupid, but like if she was actually here, I think I would have probably put her in the A tier. I think she was genuinely a very fun worker, and her technical style was very enjoyable to watch. But it's one of those people. I haven't seen her in a while, and I'm not going to pretend to put her in a tier when it's just been like over a year since I've seen her. She hasn't even had a match this year. So for that reason, she's going in the haven't seen in a while tier. Next, we have Sky Blue, who has an actual case for Breakout Women's Wrestler of the Year just because of all these like pretty solid matches she's had on Dynamite, Rampage, and even Collision. She's even continued to do indies and keeps working those, and I just love to see that from a young talent. I love to see a young talent who really puts in the work outside of it, just like the opposite of Anna Jay. And that's not to shit on Anna Jay, you don't have to do it. Not everybody has to. But when you see someone putting in the work and just getting better on TV, like noticeably getting more comfortable in front of a camera, it's just really cool to see. And I've been excited to see that growth. I'm also excited to see her run maybe as a heel character. I think that's very interesting. I think she could maybe bring a lot to it. So, I mean, why not try it out? She's young. At the end of the day, it's best to test her out. It's best to throw her into the ocean and see if she can swim. With all that being said, I'm honestly putting her in B tier. I think she has a lot more potential than some of the other younger women's wrestlers on this list, and I'm excited to see what she does. She has it a lot of the time. I think her work is very smooth, and I'm not going to continue to ramble about her, but I'm a fan. B tier. Ty Mello is going to go in the haven't seen in a while tier. When she did wrestle, she would be another person that would be in the A tier because I genuinely loved her work. I mean, she's a black belt that does black belt shit in the ring, and that's awesome. But then she was moved alongside Sammy Guevara and just never wrestled again, and then turned heel, and it just didn't really work too well. And yeah, I wasn't too moved by all that. But before that, I mean, you remember that match with Hikaru Shida. I hope Shida's still champion when she comes back, because could you imagine like a return match and maybe it's that good? That'd be awesome. But yeah, she's in the hasn't seen in a while tier just because haven't seen in a while, and it probably will still be a while because she still has to have the kid. But I hope all is well, and I hope she comes back stronger and better than ever. Next up, we have someone who I'm not sure if everyone's going to agree with this take, but I'm going to put Ty Valkyrie in the D tier. She had all those matches with Jade. She had I think a few matches against Chris Statlander, and I don't think I was moved by any of them. I don't think any of them were really that good. Maybe not even really that good, just not good at all. Like, her in-ring work just feels so like clunky and awkward, and she hasn't really connected with any of the people she's worked with, and her run just hasn't been that good to me, and I haven't enjoyed any of her matches, so there's not even much more to say about it. I think she just belongs in the D tier in my own personal tier list. Next up, we have the Bunny, who, like I said when I was talking about Penelope Ford, is just a very solid hand to have around. I think she's maybe a bit better than the C tier, but we just don't see her prove it that much in the big spots, and when she did get a big spot, she got hurt, sadly, so I do hope she gets more opportunities on TV, but for now, I think it's a C tier. Next up, we're talking about Thunder Rosa, who should be back shortly and is someone that I'm very excited to see back in the ring. When she was champion, I actually thought her run was going pretty well, aside from the promos where she just didn't really feel ready to have those kinds of like in front of the crowd promos, but it was pretty sad when she has to drop it, and I kind of thought it wouldn't be so long before we saw her again, but her back was fucked apparently, and I'm just, like I said, I'm excited to see her again. I think she's genuinely better than a lot of these women's wrestlers in the ring. I think she can go with pretty much anyone, and I hope she's inserted into a top title feud whenever she comes back. I'm kind of hoping for Chris Statlander. I think they would have a great match together on a pay-per-view. Just give them like 15 minutes and they would have a banger. I'm not sure everyone is going to agree, and I think some people might even argue that I shouldn't put her in the haven't seen in a while tier, but I very much remember her work, and I very much remember how I felt about it, so for that reason, I think she's going in the A tier, and I'm pretty excited for her return here soon, hopefully. Next up, we have timeless Toni Storm, who I think is an amazing character at the moment. It's so nice to see someone who I never would have expected to get a character over, similar to Roddy Strong, It's probably the most any of the AEW fandom has enjoyed a women's wrestling character since Britt Baker, like early Britt Baker, and for that reason, I think she belongs in the S tier. That just doesn't happen very often. I think what she's doing is awesome. Her in-ring work is just as good, and a lot of the mannerisms she's adopted since she's turned into this timeless Toni Storm character has been awesome to see, and I think it's been great to see it all included in all of her offense. I think some people, whenever they turn or whenever they change characters, they never really switch up their offense too much, and it makes the character switch feel kind of lackluster, but not Toni Storm. She's good enough to do that, so for that reason, I think she belongs in that S tier. Trish Adora and Yuka Sakazaki, we're going to go ahead and lump those two in because I want to talk about Willow last. I'm going to put both those in a haven't seen in a while tier. I haven't seen much Trish Adora. I know she's an exciting women's wrestler, but she's not really featured too often. And Yuka Sakazaki is just similar to Riho in Japan, and I really hope they bring her back because I really want to see some of the matches she can have. I think she's good in the ring, and whenever I've seen her, I even saw her live, I think she's been pretty awesome, and yeah, I hope to see her return soon. Like I said though, we're going to end this off on Willow Nightingale, who I think is the perfect person to end with. She's someone who everyone sees as a potential like top star of AEW, definitely top face, and she just has this energy that just so easily connects with the crowd, and that just doesn't come around very often. It's not common. Her in-ring work is also very, very good. If you don't know, you gotta watch that match with Athena because that match is one of the best matches of the year, even though I was maybe a little bit lesser on it than I think a lot of people were, but it's still genuinely one of the best matches of this year when it comes to women's wrestling, and she just has so much potential. I pray that TK taps into it, man. I think currently she's kind of going through like a maybe heel turn. I would be excited to see her as a heel, but I don't know. You don't really need that. You need her to be a face, and I think she should be someone who takes one of these 3 belts off of the top women. I think I would probably argue that it should be the ROH women's title too. At the end of the day, I feel like she's the end game. I don't really feel moved by anyone else to do it. So yeah, she should be the one to win that ROH Women's Championship, and she should be one of the future like pillars of the women's division going for like the next 10-15 years probably. And if I haven't said already, she's going in the A tier because she's that damn good. And yeah, that's my list. I haven't ranked them from like, best to worst in each of the tiers because I don't want to do that. I feel like that'll cause too much discourse, but if you disagree with any of these rankings, if you think anyone should be higher or lower when it comes to the tiers, sound off in the comments. I'm genuinely curious to see how everyone feels. Also, leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you love wrestling. I'm going to continue to try to upload on this channel more and more because I love talking graps, and I hope you guys enjoy listening along with me. Follow my 2 Twitters, check out my spreadsheet. I have all the ratings for old school matches, 2023, 2022, everything that I've watched that I feel deserves the rating is rated. I even have a letterbox down there if you want to check that out. But with all that out of the way, much love to all of you guys who support the channel, and have a great one. Peace.